healthcare and immigration to a flood of foreign policy. There's a lot on lawmakers' plates. Representatives Debbie Dingell and Paul Mitchell are here to talk about it. And big backlash after big blunders. So how do these things happen? We'll ask the PR professionals. Today is Sunday, April 16th, 2017. This is Flashpoint. Hello, happy Easter, and welcome to Flashpoint. I'm Kimberly Gill, in for Devin Skillion this week, who is taking some much-deserved time off. It has been a busy news week for our nation, a week full of contradictions, flip-flopping, and apologies. It's a week where we saw the U.S. launch dozens of Tomahawk missiles against Syria. It came in response to President Bashar al-Assad's apparent use of chemical weapons against his own people, including children. And then a few days later, the U.S. military dropped the most powerful non-nuclear bomb on ISIS targets in Afghanistan. It's being called the mother of all bombs. The actions have been drawing both criticism and praise. But does President Trump have a defined foreign policy agenda? How does he make these decisions without authorization from Congress? And what about health care and the president's other campaign promises, including building that wall along the Mexican border? We'll talk to two local U.S. lawmakers about some of those issues. And then a little later in the show, it was apology after apology after apology. Three major public relations blunders. You had Pepsi's controversial TV ad with Kendall Jenner, United Airlines and its overbooking crisis, and Sean Spicer's Hitler comments. All have had to apologize just within the past week. The question is, how do these things happen and then spiral out of control? We'll talk about it with some local PR professionals. It's all this morning on Flashpoint. But let's start with what's happening in Washington. Congress is in the middle of a two-week Easter recess, so lawmakers are back in their home districts, including here in Michigan. And we are happy to have with us on the show today Democrat Debbie Dingell and Republican Paul Mitchell to talk about some of the successes and challenges they faced so far this year in Washington, as well as what is ahead when you go back to work coming up on April 25th. So thank you both for being with us here on the show. Let's just jump right in and start with the idea of flip-flopping. Flip-flopping versus flexibility. As of this recording on Friday, we've seen two U.S. military strikes in the past week. The president seems to have done a complete 180 on his thoughts about Syria, criticizing President Obama, saying he has to get congressional authorization. Then 4 years later, responding to virtually the same situation with exactly the response that he urged Obama against. So is this a good thing? And how do you deal with this? We'll start with you, Paul.
I don't think you can let a chemical attack against your citizens, against women and children, which we all saw the video of there. It's a heinous act. You can't let that happen without responding to it. And you have to respond in a definitive manner. It was a relatively controlled strike as well, meant to send a message, which is if you're going to act that way, we will stop you in a manner that's necessary. So we took an air base out of operation. I think it's the appropriate thing to do. People have asked about continuing use of military force. I think under the War Powers Act, he has the ability to act when he has to on a quick basis. Long term, if he's going to take continued military action either in Syria or additional actions in Afghanistan, he's going to have to seek authorization from Congress. We've talked about it, the Congressman and I, and I think that'll be looked at carefully by Congress. Already some senators have already talked about a need to update those authorizations, and we'll do that.
What are your thoughts?
Well, it's a very complicated question because I like to think that all of us will make our decisions based on best available information, and I hope that both of us are open to down the road we may want to change a position that we've had because we've gotten better information. Having said that, there's an inconsistency or a flip-flopping almost every day that we've got a real crisis in this country and in our stature in the world that people are never quite sure that what's said today will hold tomorrow. So being able to give your word and having people know that your word matters, I think, has become a crisis at this point. I do agree with Paul very strongly that if we are to put military troops on the ground, that they must come back to the Congress. I think we need a very thorough investigation of what has happened in Syria and understanding of it. The intelligence agencies need to be doing that and reporting to the Congress, and we need to bring that back to the Congress.
Does it bother you that President Trump doesn't seem to have a clear foreign policy agenda, or does he?
Well, some people would say that he does.
Yeah, Paul, you might say that he does.
Well, if you look at separate venue, but you look at what's happened with North Korea and the conversations that Trump has had with the Chinese. The Chinese reportedly, from several sources, sent back North Korean coal back to North Korea, buying coal from the United States, to send an economic message. I'm hopeful, at this point in time, all I can say is hopeful, that the message that President Trump is sending is we are not going to allow North Korea to become a nuclear aggressive state, and we need China's help to do that. And that message seems to be getting through. So I think we have to have enough patience to recognize that those things don't happen in one phone call, one meeting, one summit. It takes time to do that, and a persistent, aggressive perspective on it. And one thing you can say about President Trump, he certainly is aggressive.
He's aggressive, and some would say he's very decisive too. Is that?
Well, he made decisions.
Sure,
he made decisions in Syria and Afghanistan that were very definitive. It didn't take a long period of time. Didn't take a lot of thrashing. Chemical weapons against your citizens are morally wrong. If you're going to do it from that basis, no question where it happened from, we'll solve that problem. I think 59 Tomahawk missiles sent a message. I think people around the world saw that. Hopefully, the little fellow in North Korea saw that as well.
Go ahead, Debbie.
Well, I am scared to death about North Korea, and I think that that's the. I think that, quite frankly, North Korea is the biggest threat to global peace that there is in this world, and I want to know that we've got somebody who's thoughtful, steady, with their finger on the button. So I get a little more terrified than Paul does of some of the erraticism of what's going to be said hour to hour, what our consistent foreign policy is. We haven't even staffed up at the State Department yet. We need to have professionals in there at both the National Security Council and at the State Department. So I don't quite have the same sense of serenity that my colleague does have, because I really do worry about making sure that we have steadiness as we are in these
It's not serenity. It's not serenity. It's a belief that we're sending the right message, what the lines are, what the perspective is. And in terms of staffing up, let's be honest about it. The delays in the Senate are pretty historical, causing some real delays in terms of staffing administration. We have a president that won. They need to be able to staff administration so they can, in fact, administer the government. And the Senate needs to move forward at a faster pace than they are to allow that to happen. An awful lot of that is held up, and you really can't staff a lot of lower positions until you get those next level positions staffed. The Senate needs to move more expeditiously in getting that done, so in fact we can govern better. I certainly hope they'll get to it when we go back on the 25th.
Yeah. So it's a Republican Senate, and one of the things that does worry me is that we've got to make sure we are not demoralizing. We've lost a lot of professionals at the State Department.
It's a Republican Senate, but as you're well aware, it's also the 60-vote criteria that has been bandied about and was in fact discarded in the certification, the confirmation, I'm sorry, of Gorsuch. They decided that it was such a barrier that we're going to move on.
Speaking of the Republican Senate, sure. you would think, I think a lot of people thought that it would be easier to push legislation through, having Republicans in control. That has not really been the case, or has it?
Well, the House has taken a great deal of action, which Debbie's well aware of. And
concerned about a little.
Well, I have a colleague of mine that put it best, in my opinion. He said that when you all have the ball, you're going to run it down the field and run it as hard as you can. And when we have the ball, we're going to run it down the field as hard as we can. And that's the way this democracy or republic works. In the Senate, however, it's a different deal. Just because you have the majority of the Senate, which is admittedly a pretty slim, 52 votes, you need 60 votes to get most things to the Senate, except through reconciliation, which is a whole discussion. So just because you have control of all branches of government doesn't mean you can move things, when in fact you've got to get the Senate to move along.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how that goes forward.
Did you think it would be easier, though?
I don't, at this point in time, I would assume anything's easy in Washington.
But you know, I will say something. Our forefathers wrote a constitution that's still the greatest document in the world. And they set up 3 branches of government.
Absolutely.
And they set up the House and Senate so that the Senate would be the cooling saucer. John Dingell used to say that whenever someone left the House and went to the Senate, the intelligence of both institutions went up. But they did know what they were doing with 3 branches of government in a Congress that did balance.
Should note, though, that filibuster is not part of the Constitution or any. It's a rule in the Senate that's existed for a long period of time in various means, but it's not something that the forefathers put in place as they saw the need for the Senate to function the way it did. It's been something that they developed, and I think it's going to see some revision.
It does prevent a tyranny of the majority.
Okay, let me stop you there. We do need to take a break. When we come back, we'll have more from Representatives Debbie Dingell and Paul Mitchell. Stay with us for more. Welcome back, everybody. We continue our conversation with U.S. Representatives Debbie Dingell and Paul Mitchell. Thanks again for talking with us. Let's move the conversation topic to Obamacare, repeal and replace. I know this is both your favorite topics of discussion here. And the idea of these essential health benefits, kind of explain to our viewers what that is and whether or not you would support an Obamacare repeal that allows states to opt out of requiring insurers to provide those benefits. Who wants to go first?
So the essential benefits package was included in the Affordable Care Act when it was passed, and it was the minimum coverage that an insurance company was required to provide. So not only hospitalization, prescription drugs, but mental health benefits, maternal benefits, because, I mean, that's, quite frankly, I don't think being a woman's a pre-existing condition. Some people do. Opioid drug conditions. And I do think that to ensure that people are getting comprehensive health care packages, we need to provide those essential benefits.
Yeah. Paul, you disagree?
Well, no, I disagree in that a comprehensive health care package does not require that you have all of those items for any particular individual. And the fact that the government mandated, the federal government mandated, these have to be offered, not only offered, but provided to every individual if they get health care. And you're paying for them whether you will ever use them or not. Maternity benefits are a perfect example, and we talked a little about this in the lead up here. I guarantee my spouse and I won't be using maternity benefits, but we pay for them, along with a series of other benefits that require every citizen to buy if they get health insurance, whether they will ever use them or not, or they desire them. And it's driven up the cost of health care. That we have to address by allowing insurance providers, allow states and providers to say, here's packages you can buy. Choose the one that best fits your family, rather than us tell you, the government tell you, we know what you need, just trust us, it'll all be okay. We've seen that. It's a disaster. In Michigan last year, premiums went up on individual policies 17%. 68% of the counties in Michigan only have one or two providers under the Affordable Care Act at this point in time, carriers. It's falling under its own weight, and yet somehow people keep saying we want to preserve it. What is there to preserve? It's a train wreck.
But see, with respect, I'm going to take you back to why we passed the Affordable Care Act, because healthcare costs were escalating far higher than that each year. And I'm not saying the Affordable Care Act is perfect. I have said I will not work with anybody to pass a bad bill, but there are things that we need to improve. And there is a small segment, 90% of the people in this country are happy with their health care. Their health care costs have actually gone down since the Affordable Care Act was passed. But then the cost of health care was more expensive than steel was in an automobile. Healthcare benefit, and by the way, I couldn't, when I was at GM for a period of time, my mammograms weren't covered.
We need to get our polling people to sit down and sit together and look at the data, because I tell you, the data that I see is that 90% of the people are not happy with their health care. So
University of Michigan, independent.
Well, I went to Michigan State. That will explain a great deal.
Right.
I'm a Spartan and always will be.
Let's move on to a somewhat similar but different topic. Initially, when the president's health care plan failed, he said he's going to move on to tax reform. We've still got the border wall on the table and his other campaign promises. Do you see the agenda being able to move forward? Do we go back to health care? Where are we with this, and what happens next?
Well, I think we're working it all simultaneously. We had conversations this last week on continuing to work on health care. Tax reform continues on the table, and there's a variety of options being put forward.
But without passing a repeal to Obamacare, how do you find the money to fund tax reform and lowering taxes?
Well, you can fund tax reform, but you still, it's less to do that. I mean, you have less room to do that, admittedly.
Didn't the president this week say we're not going to do tax reform until we do affordable care? That this week's report. Well, not you.
Due respect, I don't watch the everything the president says at the moment in time, as he doesn't, as you well noted.
You mean you don't get his tweets coming to your phone?
There are three branches of government, and I checked. The president does not run the House of Representatives, so with all due respect, we'll work on our project here we're doing. The thing you asked about what's next is, and Debbie's mentioned it, we have to go back on the 25th and get right into how it is we continue to fund the government.
Right.
The continuing resolution expires on the 28th, and we've got to at least extend that as we deal with longer-term funding, and it will be a major undertaking.
Yeah. Do you think we make it? I mean,
I sincerely hope we don't shut down the government. I don't think it's good for anybody. I think we're already, as a country, people are concerned about our stability, and I don't think it would be a good signal. We'll have to see if we're able to work a budget out between the two parties, and even for a simple extension of a few days.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, fingers crossed. You've got a lot on your plate. We appreciate you taking time to coming and talking to
Good to be here.
Our viewers. Yeah, we appreciate it. And after the break, we'll talk more. It's been an interesting week for corporate public relations. When we come back, we'll talk with some local professionals about some of the blunders we've seen this week. Stay with us. Welcome back, everybody. After a week of news dominated by 3 major public relations blunders, we've seen 3 gigantic requests for forgiveness after Pepsi, United Airlines, and White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer all have had to apologize for some pretty big PR missteps. So how does this happen? How does it spiral out of control so quickly? And what makes for a good apology? Here to talk about that are some local PR professionals. We have Christina Lovio of Lovio George, a PR and branding agency here in Detroit, been around some 34 years. And also we have Peter Van Dyke of Van Dyke Horn, another Michigan-based public relations firm, been around a long time as well. So thank you guys so much for coming and talking to us. That a lot of people are talking about this. Social media has lit up over it all this week. So let's start with Pepsi. So you've got this ad featuring Kendall Jenner. She's standing at the head of a protest offering a soda to a police officer as a peace offering at a protest. And coincidentally, the commercial airs on the anniversary of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. When these types of things happen, how important is the apology and the timing and tone of the apology? You know, in Sean Spicer's case, we saw he flat out said, I screwed up. I let the president down, and you really felt like he felt bad about what he said. But you've got United Airlines who comes out and they say, sorry, not really sorry. But then when you saw their stock prices fall, they said, let's back up a little bit and retract that. So who apologized better, and how do companies keep this from happening again? Christina, you want to go first, and just, you know, how important is the apology?
Oh, I think the apology is very important. I think the issue is, as you say, how did it happen? I don't know that you can put the water back in the bottle and say, oops. My question is, what kind of vetting did that film go through that lacked so much, I don't want to say character, but believability or authenticity? And I think sometimes, and Peter and I have faced this in other companies, it gets very insular. And the lack of diversity, and I don't just mean race or gender, I mean level of experience. I mean, if you haven't been through civil rights and you haven't ever had those issues, you can't translate them through a script, much less through a camera lens.
Yeah. Peter, your thoughts?
Yeah, you know, at Van Dyke Horn, everything we do, we look at through a diversity lens. You know, with broad audiences and with social media, where anybody can be an audience. It's important to think about who your audiences are and how they might perceive what you're doing. I understand that Pepsi was trying to be a little provocative, but when you're trying to be provocative, you have to do it smartly. And I don't think they really prepared for that, and we're seeing the results of that now. Yeah,
yeah. In terms of you know, what we saw with United Airlines, you know, it's just, people can't stop talking about it. It is just unbelievable in this day and age that something like that would happen. Do you think that they will come back from this? We saw their stock prices plummet. And, you know, their CEO comes up and gives you know, an apology, and now we've got this guy who is hurt a lot more than what they realized at the beginning. How do you get past this? Will they get past this?
I'm sure they'll get past it in time. I mean, if there was more choice in the airline industry, more diversity of travel, they might suffer longer, but it was so avoidable. Yeah. From a planning standpoint, which we like to assume is the starting point, when you've got an issue coming, you know, who might get hurt, how can we handle it differently? They could have, before the passengers got seated, said, we need volunteers and we'll give you so many miles. I think Chuck Gatica said today that he got 20,000 miles for a delayed flight because of weather on Delta. Anyone would have raised their hand and said, I'm out of here. But to get to that point and have to forcibly drag someone, it cuts to the character of the organization, I believe.
Peter, you agree?
I completely agree. And I think, you know, one thing we always say is this too shall pass. And it will pass, but that video will never go away.
Right. Yes.
And those tweets will never go away. And so in the case of United Airlines, you can't plan for that kind of a crisis. You don't know what your staff is going to do when they're on the front line, but you can prepare for it. And they weren't prepared for an immediate response. And it should have been immediate. And it should have been a simple apology. And that's exactly where they went wrong after the crisis happened.
You mentioned social media, Twitter, that the video will never go away, the tweet will never go away. How much harder is it in this day and age of social media than compared to, say, 10 or 15 years ago, where everybody wasn't, always on their phones and all over Twitter?
Well, I mean, it was retweeted, I think, 170,000 times, and that was not on broadcast or on radio. I think once it's out there, to try and neutralize it or counteract it is difficult.
Yeah. Peter?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, anybody can play the role of media these days with social media and with videos on your phone. Yeah. And so in that case, the other passengers, played the role of media. And you can't message, the average citizen taking a plane ride.
Absolutely.
And so trying to control that message becomes very hard in the age of social media, when anybody's media at that point.
I think the other thing, too, that in this day is people are looking for organizations that they feel good doing business with. And to lose sight of that in daily function, which we try and take a look at, is almost, I don't know, deathly, because they can't recover. And the airlines just have no goodwill out there. Right. I mean, you can't sit in the seats now. I don't think I'm very tall at 5'8", but
I have a challenge.
You have a challenge. It's kind of in their back.
It is difficult. Just before we wrap things up, who do you think apologized better? Just curious, your thoughts. Peter?
Sean Spicer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was immediate. While his comment was definitely not warranted, people make mistakes, and that's part of life. It's how you handle those mistakes, and it was an immediate response. It was very apologetic. It was very authentic. Yeah. And
he flat out said, "I screwed up."
Yes.
I mean, in the case of Pepsi, they defended the commercial first and then apologized for it, which is the absolute wrong thing to do.
Yes.
Nobody can fault an apology.
Yep.
And that's the very first thing you can do, and immediately.
Yep. So it needs to be swift.
Message.
It needs to be very sincere. It can't be, I apologize, but.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so you don't need that.
And we call that apology that holding message. It holds people where they are. It shows that you have leadership, that you care, and then take the time to get the facts and go back to them.
Okay. Very good. We have to wrap up with that comment.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you very much coming on the show. And thank you to all of my guests and for joining us for Flashpoint. Meet the Press is next after Mitch Albom's Heart of Detroit. Have a great Sunday, a great Easter, everybody. We'll see you next week.